Welcome to the deep dive. You're probably here because, like us, you want to really get a handle on important stuff, but without,
Yeah.
getting totally bogged down.
Right, you want the core knowledge, fast and clear.
Exactly. So today we're tackling personal finance and credit management, but from a bit of a different angle,
Yeah, we're looking at interview questions for credit assistance.
which sounds maybe a little niche, but think about it. These questions reveal what skills and knowledge someone guiding others on credit needs to have.
And that gives us, well, kind of an inside track for managing our own finances better. It's about pulling out the practical wisdom.
Okay, I like that, an inside track.
Great.
So before we dive into the questions, maybe just briefly, what exactly does a credit assistant do, just to set the scene?
Sure. So basically, they help manage credit. That could be for a business, looking at risk, assessing finances,
Okay.
or it could be helping individuals like understand their credit reports, maybe make financial plans. They often deal directly with accounts, credit histories, talking to clients.
Got it. So they're really in the trenches of credit management.
Exactly. Which is why these interview questions are so focused on core financial skills and knowledge things that honestly are super relevant for managing your own money too.
Makes perfect sense. All right, let's get into the questions then. One of the first ones someone might face is, how have you managed your own finances in the past?
Right. Seems straightforward, but it's digging deeper.
Yeah, what's the interviewer really after there, and what can we learn?
Well, they're definitely gauging financial literacy. Like, do you walk the walk?
Uh-huh.
It also hints at organizational skills, responsibility.
Yeah.
Basically, are you sound enough to handle this kind of role? And maybe do your personal habits align with, good financial practice?
So thinking about how we answer that, even just for ourselves, highlights if we're actually practicing what we preach, financially speaking.
Precisely. It's about self-assessment, too.
And the example answer they often look for mentions things like budgeting, tracking spending, maybe using financial apps. Why are those the go-to examples?
Because they show a systematic approach. They demonstrate you're proactive, you're using tools, you're actually managing it, not just letting it happen.
Right.
And for anyone listening, these aren't just good interview sound bites. They're like the bedrock habits for financial control. Budgeting reduces anxiety. Tracking spending, that reveals a lot.
Yeah, those little expenses really add up, don't they?
They absolutely do.
Okay, another question. What made you want to become a credit assistant? This feels more about motivation.
It is. They want to know the why. Is there a genuine interest in finance? Can they handle the challenges?
Are they just looking for any job or this specific kind of work?
Exactly. And do they have the right skills, the right sort of value system for the company? The example answer talks about liking finance, numbers, helping people, finding it rewarding.
Which prompts us to think about our own motivations around money, maybe. Why do we make the financial choices we do?
That's a great takeaway. Understanding your own drivers is key.
Okay, how about this one? What do you think are the most important qualities for a successful credit assistant? This seems like it gets right to the core skills.
It really does. The interviewer is kind of laying out their ideal candidate profile and seeing if you recognize it.
And the list includes things like being super organized, paying attention to detail, working independently, communicating well.
Yeah, and the example answer adds things like strong analytical skills, researchability, good interpersonal skills, being detail-oriented under pressure.
Listening to that list, those sound like valuable qualities for pretty much anyone managing anything complex. Definitely applies to personal finance.
You absolutely nailed it. These aren't just job skills, they're life skills for financial health. Organization keeps you on track. Attention to detail prevents mistakes.
Independence means taking ownership.
Right. And communication is vital when dealing with banks or advisors. It's all directly transferable.
Okay, here's one looking forward. What do you think are the biggest challenges you will face in this role? Why ask that?
It checks for realism, self-awareness. Do they understand? It's not all smooth sailing.
What kind of challenges come up in the examples?
Things like the nitty-gritty of tracking complex credit histories, negotiating with creditors, which can be tough,
I bet.
and just staying current. The credit world changes constantly. Rules, scores, everything.
So it's a reminder that even the pros find it challenging. It's not just us feeling overwhelmed sometimes.
Definitely not. It's a dynamic field.
Let's get practical. How do you plan to stay organized and keep track of all the different accounts you'll be working with? Very tactical question.
Super tactical. They need to know you have a system, especially if you're juggling multiple clients.
What kind of systems did they suggest?
The examples are pretty common sense but effective. Color coding files, clear labeling, using folders, physical or digital,
Hmm.
maybe keeping daily logs of tasks and balances.
I could probably use some color coding in my own financial life. Digital folders, maybe?
See, these are practical tips for anyone. If you have multiple bank accounts, credit cards, loans, investments, a system prevents things from falling through the cracks.
Prevents late fees, missed payments, losing track of the big picture. Yeah, makes sense.
Absolutely. Reduces stress too.
Okay, shifting to people skills. What do you think is the best way to build good relationships with clients? Why is that relationship piece so important here?
Well, finances are sensitive, right? Trust is huge. A good relationship means clients are more open, more honest, maybe more receptive to advice.
So how do you build that trust? The examples.
Being friendly, approachable, uh, really responsive to their questions and needs, and just consistently delivering good, reliable service.
And for us, interacting with our own banks or advisors, being clear and positive probably helps us get better service too.
It certainly can't hurt. Good communication is always a plus in financial matters.
Then there's the flip side, difficult conversations. How do you handle difficult conversations with clients about their finances? What's the goal here?
Testing emotional intelligence, basically. Can you handle tough news or pushback with empathy and professionalism?
And the advice is?
Be respectful, be understanding, communicate very clearly, concisely, and, importantly, have a plan. What are the next steps? Don't just drop bad news.
That's good advice for any tough talk, really, but especially money talk where emotions run high.
Exactly. Stay calm, focus on solutions.
This next one feels central. What do you think is the most important thing to remember when working with clients' finances?
Yeah. This gets to the core ethics.
The example answer mentions acting in their best interest, honesty, transparency about fees and risks, staying up to date.
That's the bedrock. Trust. You have to prioritize the client's well-being above all else. It's non-negotiable.
And for ourselves, a good reminder to be diligent with our own stuff, stay informed, prioritize our long-term financial health.
Spot on. Be your own best advocate.
Okay, let's pivot to some direct financial advice embedded in these questions. What do you think are the best ways to save money and reduce debt?
The classics. And they're classics for a reason.
Like what?
Creating and actually sticking to a budget. Paying bills on time, every time. And
Yeah.
consistently putting money into savings, even if it's small amounts to start.
The fundamentals. Budgeting gives you control, paying on time avoids fees and credit dings, saving builds security.
Could say better. They're the pillars.
Building on that, what do you think is the best way to use credit wisely? What are the key points here?
Okay, several important ones. Making payments on time, we just covered that. But it's crucial for credit scores.
Right.
Keeping balances low. This is about your credit utilization ratio, ideally under 30% of your limit.
Ah, the utilization percentage.
Using a mix of credit types responsibly, like maybe a credit card and an installment loan, shows you can handle different kinds.
Okay.
Avoiding opening too many accounts too quickly, that can look risky.
Right, those hard inquiries.
Exactly. And regularly checking your credit reports for errors. Mistakes happen.
So it's really about understanding how your actions directly impact that score and your access to future credit.
Precisely. It's about informed, responsible use.
Now, the flip side. What do you think are the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to their finances?
Oh, there are a few common culprits highlighted.
Such as?
Not having a budget is a big one. Just spending without a plan.
Yeah. Winging it financially usually doesn't end well.
No. Another is not saving for retirement early enough. Missing out on that compounding is a huge missed opportunity.
Time is your biggest ally there.
Absolutely. And not diversifying investments. Putting all your eggs in one basket is risky.
So budget, save early, diversify seems like a good mantra.
Recognizing those pitfalls is the first step to avoiding them, right?
Definitely. Now, to stay effective, a credit assistant needs to keep learning. How do you plan to educate yourself on financial topics? What's the message here?
The finance isn't static. You have to keep learning. Laws change, markets shift, new products emerge.
How do they suggest staying sharp?
Reading books, articles, reputable websites, attending seminars or workshops, just generally staying plugged into financial news and trends.
And that applies to us too, doesn't it? We can't just learn about money once and be done.
No way. It's an
Right.
ongoing process, lifelong learning, really.
And specifically for the credit industry, what do you think is the best way to stay up to date on changes? Similar idea.
Yeah, very similar, but maybe more focused. Reading specific industry news, attending conferences, maybe joining professional groups.
So for the pros, it's about being deeply immersed. For us, maybe just keeping an eye on major changes reported in mainstream financial news.
That's probably sufficient for most people, yeah. Stay informed about things that directly affect you, like changes in credit scoring models or major regulations.
Okay, let's tackle some tougher scenarios. How do you plan to handle clients who are behind on their payments or at risk of defaulting?
This tests problem solving. Can you find solutions, not just identify problems?
What kinds of solutions?
Things like working out a modified payment plan they can actually afford. Sometimes, negotiating with a lender for lower payments, maybe temporarily. Legal action is usually seen as, like, a last resort.
It highlights the need to be proactive if you're struggling, right? Talk to your lenders before it becomes a crisis.
Absolutely. Communication early on can open up options you might not get later.
And that leads nicely into negotiation. What do you think is the best way to negotiate with creditors on behalf of your clients?
Yeah, negotiation skills are key. The examples stress things like really listening to understand the other side,
Okay.
providing clear, accurate info, being creative with solutions, thinking outside the box a bit,
Mm-hmm.
being assertive, advocating for the client but staying respectful, and of course, confidentiality is paramount.
Those sound like solid negotiation tactics for almost anything, not just debt.
They really are. Preparation, clear communication, seeking common ground, always valuable.
What about challenges with the credit reports themselves? What do you think are the biggest challenges you will face when working with clients' credit reports?
Common issues mentioned are things like a thin file, just not much credit history there, which makes assessment tricky.
Right, hard to judge if there's not much data.
Exactly. And the other big one is negative items, late payments, collections, bankruptcies, things actively dragging down the score,
Understanding those helps tailor the advice, I guess.
for sure. And it reminds us to try and build a positive history and deal with any negatives on our own reports.
Which brings us neatly to the last main point. How do you plan to help your clients improve their credit scores? Seems like a summary of sorts.
It really pulls a lot together. The strategies are logical steps.
Wait.
First, identify and dispute any errors on the report. Yeah. Get that cleaned up.
Crucial first step.
Then, develop that budget and a realistic debt repayment plan. Tackle the underlying issues.
Makes sense.
And finally, educate the client on responsible credit use going forward. Paying on time, keeping utilization low, all the things we've talked about.
So it's error correction, financial planning, and education. A combined approach.
Exactly. It's usually not just one quick fix. It's a process. And those are the exact same steps anyone can take for their own credit health.
Wow. Okay. It really is quite striking how looking at these interview questions just lays out a whole framework for managing personal finances effectively.
Isn't it? From budgeting and debt management to using credit smartly and the need to keep learning, it's all in there,
We've kind of reverse engineered a personal finance guide just by looking at what makes a good credit assistant.
pretty much. By seeing what the pros need to know, you get this accelerated understanding of what's important for your own financial life. More confidence, more knowledge.
So as we wrap up, maybe the thing to think about is which of these areas we discussed really jumped out at you?
Yeah. Where's your personal focus point? Is
Right.
it budgeting, understanding credit scores better, getting organized?
Or maybe think about which interview question gave you that aha moment for your own situation.
And reflect on those qualities. Organization, attention to detail, acting in your own best interest.
Yeah.
How can you apply those more consciously to your financial life?
That feels like a really solid takeaway. Thinking like a skilled, ethical advisor, but for yourself.
Exactly. Be your own best credit assistant.